Hello, heroes and Zargons. Welcome back to the Trials and Tribulations of Zargon. I'm Alfrich, and in this episode, we'll be covering the house rules we used in the Frozen Horror quest pack. I was awfully excited to play this quest pack, which is one of the few original releases that I haven't played at least a part of, but I didn't want to make Matt play it, so I presented him with a menu of things occurring in the world. The idea is that he can choose a quest to pursue, and completing it will give certain rewards, while waiting on other quests will create complications. Matt chose from a menu that included the Mage of the Mirror, Keller's Keep, 2 quests from the Wizards of Morcar quest pack, and the Frozen Horror. The Frozen Horror was particularly appealing, though, because it added a new hero. I plan to design quests that take more than 4 heroes and to make alterations to some of the remaining quest packs to accommodate a larger party, so I was planning to use the solo quest from the Barbarian quest pack to introduce a second Barbarian. I told Matt to choose 3 heroes to take with him on the journey north, where they would meet a new companion, and suggested, since this is the Barbarian quest pack, that it might be fun to bring 2 barbarians. That was a first mistake in my house ruling. We played the quests, we had fun, and the way they turned out gave us interesting directions for our games, but the difficulty level of our house rules was just a touch high, especially when combined with some of the already problematic things about the quest pack itself. So, I'll lay out the house rules that we used, why we used them, and what I'll do differently the next time I run this quest pack. To begin with, to maintain campaign continuity, I wanted to continue using all of our previous house rules. You can find the original house rule video linked below. I made some changes to those rules for the first 3 quests, however. I was planning to use those quests to, quote, enable a new barbarian to catch up with the other heroes by gaining gold, equipment, and magical items. However, the first 3 quests looked incredibly difficult for a single barbarian, so I determined that we would run them without our wandering monster mechanic. I figured Matt was good enough that if anyone could keep a new barbarian alive through the first few quests, it would be him. For later quests, as I mentioned, I let Matt choose his heroes from among the dwarf, the rogue, the wizard, the elf, and the other barbarian. He chose a 2 barbarian, elf, and wizard party. In hindsight, I should have recommended that he take a rogue, a dwarf, or a toolkit, because there are a lot of really dangerous traps in this quest pack, some of which strike heroes until disarmed. This problem was compounded by another mistake I made regarding resources available for purchase, which I'll come to in a moment. After hero selection, we had to house rule a few monsters. These house rulings came on a kind of ad hoc basis, and I always meant to go look at the past discussions that I know have been had about balancing these monsters, but I never did get around to it. We found that the 3 new monsters, the Yeti, the Warbear, and the Ice Gremlin, all needed house ruling or clarification. First, the notorious Yeti Hug. Rules as written, the Yeti attacks with 3 dice, and if it deals any damage, it hugs the damaged character. That character can take no actions, make no moves, and loses 2 body points on each of the Yeti's subsequent turns. The hug only ends when the Yeti dies. We ruled that the hugged hero could try to break out of a hug on their turn by rolling 2 defense dice. The hug would break on the roll of a hero shield. This gives the hero about a 50% chance to break the hug. We further ruled that the hug would break on any damage rather than on the death of the Yeti, and that a hero whose hug was broken in this way got to take their turn. I was fine with these rules, given the other things that were in place ratcheting up difficulty. But if we, really I, had made the proper adjustments elsewhere, I would have liked to have run the Yeti as follows. The Yeti hug would read, a hugged hero can break the Yeti hug by rolling a monster shield. The Yeti's hug also breaks if it suffers 2 damage from a single attack in a turn. Otherwise, the hero remains hugged until the Yeti dies. Heroes who break free of the hug can only move in the turn that they break free. This rule set conveys a danger and a toughness that our current rule set does not. Heroes still have a 30% chance to break free, and their friends are incentivized to focus their strongest attacks on the Yeti to try and cut the hugged hero free, maybe even burning good spells to try guaranteeing a breakout. Perhaps when we're in a situation where the other rules are more in balance, I'll pitch trying this out to Matt. Second, the Warbear. The Warbear's 2 attacks are dangerous indeed, and we couldn't see a situation where a Warbear would split those attacks on purpose, in part because we weren't playing with the standard mercenary rules. If there were 12 mercenaries on the board, I could see Zargon trying to kill 2 mercenaries with 1 Warbear by splitting attacks. Still, our house rule was pretty simple. We said that if the Warbear is adjacent to 2 heroes, it has to split attacks. This puts the strategic decision-making in the hero's hands. The rule only came up once to my knowledge, but it was big when it did. The heroes were able to manipulate a warbear so that it could only attack the wizard and a swordsman. That split saved the wizard's life. Third, the ice gremlin. I think this is just a clarification, but we made it clear that a full hero turn had to eclipse without the heroes being able to see an ice gremlin before it successfully stole an item. This is basically how the quest pack is written, but the wording was vague enough that we wanted to be clearer for ourselves. Our monster timer we kept in place outside of the first 3 solo quests, though we reduced the number of wandering monsters that were attracted to a fight to 1 once the monsters that appeared were Chaos Warriors or stronger. This was fine for most quests, though in the future I want to figure out a flavorful way for heroes to waive this timer a certain number of battles per quest, because there were a few rooms in these quests that were hard enough on their own. For a very few of them, I just told Matt the timer was off, but for a few others, I pretended to track turns and just forgot to have monsters appear. I like how the monster timer affects the game dynamic too much to do away with it completely, but sometimes the heroes need to know they aren't being pushed and can strafe monsters while firing crossbows or whatever. I was constantly trying to dial back in-dungeon difficulty, however, not because of these things, but mostly because I restricted access to personnel too much throughout these quests. This was a result of my trying to make the quest pack more flavorful while also preemptively adjusting for increased hero strength gained through leveling. Ordinarily, heroes have access to all equipment, potions from the Barbarian quest pack, and mercenaries to hire between every quest. However, in our game, potions are currently scarce because one of the wizards from the Wizards of Morcar quest pack is hoarding Moonstone, the chief ingredient for potions in my world. Once the heroes defeat him, the potions will become much more widely available. I also foolishly linked widespread availability of mercenaries to the completion of the Frozen Horror quest pack, reasoning that these warriors for hire from the north are currently busy protecting against the ravages of the Frozen Horror. Then, because the quests themselves are written as though the heroes are traveling through the mountains, I had them exit the iron doors into mountain valleys containing small villages or wandering merchants, with random items and equipment available. Between quests, I would draw 5 cards from the equipment deck, including the mercenaries, and drop them on the table to offer to Matt. This meant that at most, one of a particular mercenary was available for hire each quest. I thought that over the course of the quests, a careful Matt would amass 2 to 3 of each mercenary to take into the final dungeon. Boy, was I ever wrong. Mercenaries are Zargon fodder, and they fold under the slightest pressure. I should have made the barbarian items readily available throughout the quest pack, drawing up access to the unique potions after we were done, suggesting that until something changed about the potion economy, they were only available in the far north. Even leveled up, my heroes needed the support that the Frozen Horror quest pack provides. In retrospect, given Matt's playtest of the rules as written Frozen Horror quest pack, which you can find the results of in our shorts section, I'd say that the Frozen Horror rules as written is a very challenging but doable quest pack, and that our Monster Timer house rule, along with the adjustments to the Yeti and Polar Warbear, would have made this quest pack plenty challenging for heroes with level advancements, even without the restrictions on mercenary purchase. If I had the option to do it over again, I would make those mercenaries available at all times, flavor be damned. One last rule clarification that we made was to call white shields hero shields and black shields Zargon shields. This will come up as we discuss the traps and tricks of individual quests, but it was initially ambiguous to us since there is literally no black on the Frozen Horror dice, which I happened to be using at the time, and all of the shields on the dice from the original game are both black and white. We'll share the blow-by-blow of each quest and our impressions of it in subsequent videos, but if you have any general house rules that you played this quest pack with, I'd be keen to hear about them and about how they played out. Let's plot together in the comments below.